everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we're going to be discussing the love square in season 5 and how it just became a little bit of a mess and honestly unsatisfying to watch. And I do feel really bad for saying that. I don't know if you are aware, I think most of you are by now, but I do predominantly watch the show for the love square. As the show has gone on, I have found other aspects interesting, like I'm quite invested in Ali and Nina's relationship, I love Mark, I love Aeon, I love Natalie, I'm interested in Gabriel and what he's doing and whatever weird thing the writers decided Chloe is going to be up to, which really makes no narrative sense, but I am interested. Oh, there's a cat. Oh yeah. You're right, baby. But I am interested in other aspects of the show. But if I'm being brutally honest with myself and with the rest of you besties, as much as I have grown to find other aspects of the show interesting, I'm really not sure I would still be watching the show, and I'm not sure I would have got that interest in it at all if it weren't for the love square. And my favourite ship is also Adrian. So at this point you're probably all like, oh my god, Hayes, what are you talking about? How did you not like the love square in season 5? There was such a huge focus on the love square in season 5, and also your ship happened. How were you disappointed? Which is why I feel so bad about it, because Adrian happened, which is something I've wanted since I started watching the show like 6 years ago. This has been the longest 6 years of my life. But in my opinion, it just sadly wasn't executed very well. And as someone who is A, a romance author, and B, who watched the show for the two of them to get together, that's what I personally have been waiting for. Maybe you haven't, but I have. In my opinion, the way it was executed this season was just so unsatisfying, especially to someone who has been watching the show pretty much purely for the romance. Like 95% of the reason I watch Miraculous is for the romance. So perhaps if you don't watch the show for the love square, you're more interested in other things, you don't feel this way. But sadly, I do feel this way. In my opinion, the love square and how it reached, I guess, its conclusion with Adrian happening and Lady Noir no longer being a thing, I did feel it was really rushed, although saying that, I do feel like the entire plot of season 5 was also rushed. I just feel like they were cramming in as much as possible, and it really badly affected the pace and structure of the season, which also affected Adrian's relationship and the love square in general. To be honest, the only parts of like the romance for Adrian and Marinette I loved this season and I thought were really done well was the kiss in Recreation and them getting together in Transmission, like the whole kind of argument they had in Marinette's bedroom. I thought both of those scenes were done perfectly, so I'm not going to be including them in my analysis of why it was a mess. I love those two scenes. I don't think they could have been done any better. I love them so much. But the rest of it? Not so much. And part of the problem with the love square was Adrian. Now, don't get me wrong, the blame doesn't all lie with him, and to be fair, he's not real, so technically none of the blame lies with him. By Adrian, I of course mean the decisions the writers made around Adrian and his actions, his thoughts, his feelings this season. Now, I have always said that Adrian has had a crush on Marinette right from Origins. He was just unable to see it because he'd already formed feelings for Ladybug. You can see he has a crush on her in episodes like Horrificator, Despair Bear, Befana, Gorizilla, Catalyst, Mayura, Chameleon, Star Train, Party Crasher, The New York Special, Psychomedian, The Love of My Life aka Guilt Trip, and Risk. I won't go into any exact examples from those episodes, but prior to Multiplication, which does seem to be the episode where Adrian realises he has feelings for Marinette, he does already have those feelings. However, the signs of his crush on Marinette, which are obvious to me, they aren't to everyone else, and even though I already knew how he felt before Adrian knew how he felt and before most other people were aware of how he felt, I was still waiting for that big moment of realisation. But the way season 4 ends is a little weird, and it does kind of play into the bit of the mess we get in season 5. We get this build up from Optogami to Kuroneko where Cat Noir gets more and more left out by the rest of the team until it's just the two of them right at the end of Strike Back, which you would think would make him fall out of love with her, all that turmoil during the second half of season 4. But no. Firstly, Adrian at no point realises he no longer loves Ladybug. He just kind of stops, and I'm not really sure when he stops. Arguably it's in Kuroneko when he deletes all the photos from his phone but at the start of Risk he's pretty happy when she kisses him on the cheek, and in Strike Back he is very, very jealous of Fleur Middable, communicating that in the season 4 finale he still has feelings for Ladybug. But in the Reverse special, which is the same night as the finale, the longest night ever, I don't know how they all survived the stress of it, and also operating on minimal sleep. I would have fainted, I would have collapsed. I don't know how they did it anyway, not the point of the video. Cat Noir is like, oh my god, is Marinette okay, when he finds out the portal opened in her room, and before he goes to bed in Multiplication, he realises he is in love with Marinette. So in Strike Back, Cat Noir has feelings for Ladybug. Evolution, I am unsure how he feels. Reverse Cat Noir has feelings for Marinette, and by the time he goes to bed in Multiplication, he is like, yep, Marinette is the one I like. So what changed? Nothing, to be honest. The only thing he references is the conversation he has with Marinette in the prison ball scene in Risk. And don't get me wrong, it's an important scene for the two of them, and I definitely think it would have gone some way in making Adrian realise how he feels. But I don't get that moment from Adrian. It's like he decides before he goes to sleep in Multiplication, like, step aside Ladybug, I have decided I don't have feelings for you anymore. I am in love with Marinette Dupencheng. And after I don't know how many years of having to watch this idiot say, oh, she's just a friend. She's just a friend. We all, in my opinion, deserved seeing Adrian have this immense moment of realisation about how he feels for his very good friend Marinette, which we know he's capable of, as he's had that kind of reaction in Cat Blanc when he works out that Marinette is Ladybug. It was so unsatisfying to watch because he just flips like a switch. He doesn't spend the rest of Risk and Strike Back thinking about what happened between him and Marinette. It seems like it had zero effect on him in Risk, and he only realises later, which I guess is in keeping with Adrian's character, but also at the same time, if it affected him that much, it would be on his mind constantly, and he doesn't think about Marinette once until Multiplication, which is like quite a while after in terms of the timeline of the show. Like, I love this boy, but he is stupid when it comes to feelings, because even though he looks at Marinette's earlobe in Guilt Trip like he wants to marry it, he didn't realise how he felt about her in Guilt Trip or in Party Crasher or any of the other episodes I listed before. To remain in keeping with his character, he needed a bigger moment of realisation, which is what happens in Cat Blanc when the penny finally drops with him. And even though I'm not fully convinced of what he feels for Marinette until Elation, because in Jubilation he and Ladybug kiss and after it he's like, what was that? Was that real? That's the projection of what he still wants. The Pig Miraculous shows your heart's true desire. Even if in Multiplication he says he's in love with Marinette, or maybe not in love, he's starting to fall for Marinette finally. In Jubilation he's obviously still in love with Ladybug because the Pig Miraculous shows him what he truly desires. But in Determination, Adrian is taking Marinette on a date to the museum and disregards Ladybug trying to flirt with him in the same episode. So I'm not sure at which point he truly stops loving Ladybug, and also at what point he truly realises he loves Marinette. It was just a bit of a mess, because at no point was I actually sure what girl he was actually in love with or had feelings for until episode 9, Elation. And now moving on to Marinette and the strange decisions with her. So I really do understand the trauma she has. Froggy Boy is affecting her and she gives who she thinks is Adrian a Miraculous and he betrays her because it's not Adrian, it's Felix. So she quite rightly reacts with, well, I can't trust my feelings anymore, especially not for Adrian. I totally get it. However, what I don't get is her Cat Blanc related trauma. Now, I know the show just doesn't like to mention it. They do largely ignore it. Since Cat Blanc, it's only really been referenced twice, once in Senti Bubbler and then in Strike Back.
I'll never get akumatized.
And that's kind of it, but both of those instances show just how much it still does affect her, even though they tried to ignore it for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why they do. Now, I know Marinette no longer remembers the events that led up to his akumatization. However, she does remember that Cat Blanc knew her name and that it was their love that did this to the world. So, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but if I had that information, I'd be like, well, I best not fall in love with Cat Noir because it could destroy the world. Like I said, Marinette doesn't know what made him get akumatized apart from they were in love. But she doesn't remember the events leading up to it anymore. But it's quite conveniently not mentioned once. It is totally fine for Marinette to fall in love with Cat Noir, But really, she should be paranoid the whole time she has those feelings for him. Being like, oh my god, yeah, I'm kind of like falling in love with him, but also at the same time, oh my god, I can't do a thing about those feelings because it will literally kill everybody on the planet, myself included. But it's never mentioned once, it's never considered. She should be traumatized, paranoid, anxious all the time. She's fine. And Marinette's feelings for Cat Noir are very much like Adrian's feelings for Marinette's. Her feelings for him are very, very sudden. It does seem she falls for Cat Noir in Strike Back when he hugs her and there is a clap of thunder. And I think most of you know by now, but just in case you don't, coup de foudre, which literally translates to clap of thunder, also in French like means love at first sight, and this also happens in Origins. But I do feel like there's a distinct difference between the Strike Back moment and the Origins moment. In Origins we can see the way Marinette is blushing, she can't talk, she messes up the umbrella, that she's fallen for him. It's a moment of realisation for her and the audience of what has just happened, and in my opinion it is very, very clear what has just happened, even though Tiki confirms it afterwards. In my opinion, Tiki didn't need to say what she'd said. We all realised in that moment that Marinette had fallen for Adrian. However, in Strike Back, Ladybug, yes, is blushing, but that's about it. Upon my first watch of Strike Back, I didn't get the impression at all she had fallen for him. I just thought she was blushing because she'd been crying so much. I personally go really red in the face when I cry a lot. I only got the impression that she had feelings for him by the end of Determination. So episode 506, not 426. It took me 6 episodes after the finale to realise she'd fallen for him because in my opinion it just wasn't obvious. The Origins moment is so much more obvious than the one in Strike Back. So while the coup de foudre in Strike Back points that she fell for Cat Noir much sooner than in Determination, to me, and others have said this, I've seen them saying it online, it just wasn't obvious enough. A lot of people didn't realise she fell in love with Cat Noir or started to fall in love with Cat Noir in Strike Back, and with Adrian it needs to be. Like with Adrian, we've been waiting for many years for him to realise his feelings for Marinette, the same way we've been waiting for Ladybug to fall for Cat Noir and have this reverse love square, and she is capable of having that kind of response, much like Adrian, as we saw in Ephemeral when she finds out Cat Noir is Adrian. And then after Elation, again her feelings just seem to vanish and she's back to loving Adrian in Transmission. All of this going back and forth that both of them do with almost zero explanation and with almost zero visual or audio cues to the audience, which is extremely important when you write romance, made the love square really messy and also really unsatisfying. All the going back and forth and not even properly explaining their thought process to the audience, whether verbally or visually or a mix of both, was just so messy. So in episode 10 they finally get together. And if anything, it was just as bad afterwards. Adrianette, to me, now is sadly a little bit boring. Honestly, I can't wait until Lila/Cerise/Edna mode comes in and shakes it up a bit, makes it a bit more interesting to watch between them, or until Adrian finds out Marinette knew about his dad and breaks up with her, because he is gonna find out at some point. I hope. But they just need something to make it a bit more interesting. Don't get me wrong, the relationship is very sweet and lovely, but as a viewer I can't deny their dynamic now feels a little bit flat between them. And again, yes, I do feel bad for complaining about it because I've waited for years for them to get together. I do feel bad about it, but I think that's part of why I feel so disappointed, because I've waited for like 6 years and we got this.
Thank you.
There needs to be some tension between them, which I hope season 6 will bring, but if it doesn't and they just stay this way, it's gonna be so boring to watch. Like, the most interesting thing to me anyway about the love square was the will they won't they get together, and now they have got together. I'm like, alright, so do something else to keep me watching. It's often a problem that a lot of shows have if they have a pairing like this when they have two characters who obviously like each other, but for different reasons they aren't together, they can't be together, whatever it is, and everyone's waiting for them to get together, and the moment they do, everyone's like, oh my god, yes, they've finally done it. And then everyone stops watching because the dynamic lost what was interesting about it. So they really need something in season 6 to basically make it interesting and save the love square and save the relationship and stop it from getting boring to the audience. But that doesn't stop the execution of it so far being messy and unsatisfying. I think it may have been better to start this love square flip earlier. Kuroneko would have been a really good start, with Adrian ending the episode realising Ladybug isn't the one for him because of how she's been treating him all season, slowly outcasting him even though he was there for her since they began being superheroes. And he also realises it's just not gonna work, they can't be together, and from that point on he doesn't act romantically towards Ladybug at all, and from Penalty and Risk he starts to see Marinette for who she is. And as much as I love Marishat and I love the Marishat kisses in Elation, honestly, I don't think it was necessary for Marinette to fall in love with Cat Noir. I just think having Marinette realise she can't trust her feelings anymore because she didn't realise Adrian was Felix in Strike Back, and exploring the trauma around that would have been so much more effective. And I'm pretty sure this was a while ago now. I did a collab with Miraculously Lazy right at the end of season 4, and I'm pretty sure I theorised, that was like one of my ideas for Adrian. I did an Adrian video, she did a Lady Noir video, was that it was for her to become more nervous and paranoid around Adrian, and when he asks her about it she could be like, oh well, I heard Ladybug gave Felix a Miraculous and she thought it was you, and I'm like a bit paranoid, do I know if it's you, do I know it's Felix, how am I supposed to know? And Marinette just gets even more anxious around him, but because Adrian is slowly falling for her after what happened in Risk and Penalty, Adrian finally uses the charm Marinette gave him all the way back in Gamer to prove that, hey, Felix doesn't have this, I'm the real one, which would help them grow closer together, but also increase this inner conflict within Marinette, where she failed as a guardian, and even though she knows now that this is the real Adrian, that she can trust him, she still made that mistake, and her duty right now is to get all the Miraculous back, not to get a boyfriend, and she knows she can't be with him, and this feeling could continue when they get together, which could place some much needed natural tension on their relationship. I know there is some tension involved with Gabriel being like, oh well, you can't be together, but it really has no effect on Adrian or Marinette since they just ignore him, so there isn't really any tension there. The tension is completely one-sided from Gabriel, where he's like, I don't want you to date this girl, and Adrian's like, well, you know what? Dad, your pancakes are bad, I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, the tension's one-sided because it really has zero effect on Adrian and Marinette's relationship, up until Adrian is forced to go to London. Overall, yes, I do feel terrible about feeling the way I do about the love square in season 5. The love square is the primary reason I watch the show, and while I definitely have become interested in other aspects of the show, it is still my favourite part of the show, but because of the poor decisions they've made around it, it's sadly become more frustrating than satisfying to watch, and it just sometimes just doesn't make full sense. It's just become messy and not very satisfying. And like I said, I do feel bad for disliking it. You'd think, oh my god, Hayes probably loves season 5. She loves the love square. She's always said she loves the love square. But no, I sadly didn't. If you also watch the show for the love square, I hoped you enjoyed the love square more than me in season 5, especially if Adrianette was your favourite pairing like it is mine. But sadly, I've been left very disappointed by it. Anyway, those are just my opinions as a professional romance author, and also as what I would deem as a professional love square shipper. I'd love to know what you think. Do you think it was messy and unsatisfying? Did you really like it? Do you have any other ways you'd go about fixing it? I'd love to know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!